The Owl House Season 2A has come and gone, and I would argue that it is probably the most coherent half season of the show that we've gotten so far. This is in large part, because of the influences exerted on the show by Hunter, one of its most fascinating characters. Hunter, he is a somber, confused teenager torn between his own ideals and values that he feels he can't express, and his loyalty to the Emperor, who has given him his position, his status, and the feeling that he is someone worth being. Now, he is not exactly the most original character, I'll give you that, but originality is the most overrated concept in art. Every work of art that has ever been created, every work of art builds off the structures and the interactions and the basic character dynamics and plot dynamics established by previous works of art. That is literally what art is. The idea that every work of art is a completely atomized and individualized unit is a notion that is both absolutely spurious and quite modern. It's also encouraged by copyright laws, which is a major reason why I do not like copyright laws. Now, obviously, I don't think someone should be able to make the exact same story and profit off that, but the basic ethos of copyright has done a lot of damage to art. The basic ethos of copyright says that there are very specific proprietary ideas and plot points and character dynamics in a work of art, and if you take from those, you're stealing, you're ripping them off, you're a thief. And yes, I am a thief. Artists are thieves. Great art is thievery. The trick is to copy intelligently and take from other works of art that which fits the ideas you have in mind for your own work of art. The whole idea that different works of art are completely separate from each other and that they do not draw from plot structures and character dynamics established in the past is absolutely absurd. Every work of art draws from a long established tradition of different systems, different norms, different mores about what works in art, what character dynamics, what plot climaxes, what mid-plot interactions are effective for telling a different type of story. Now, this is not to say that all works of art are exactly the same, which is how this idea is vulgarized far too commonly, but it is to say that the differences pertain to the values and experiences of the people creating the art and the greater cultural trends informing the artist's worldview in ways that are sometimes conscious and sometimes subconscious. But the actual deep, formal foundations of art do not belong to the artist. They far predate the individual ego and your individual way to tell a story. Say, I want to tell a story about a guy who is up for a job and then he's rejected, so he runs off and does something crazy. That could be my idea, but that idea is not really significant. Like, there are tons of stories with similar ideas. What matters is how I take that idea and really apply it to certain building blocks of narrative and story structure. Different building blocks for how to develop characters and how to develop relationships between characters. Those do not belong to me. Those far predate me. I transform them and make them my own, if I'm a good artist, but I do not own everything in the work of art. I'm drawing from a long-established tradition. The great T.S. Eliot, one of the greatest writers, poets, and literary critics of the 20th century, understood this quite well. He was a very astute critic on the relationship between artists and the artistic traditions from which they draw. But I'm sorry if this is a bit long-winded and pretentious. All of this is a very long and overly drawn-out way of saying that I do not care if Hunter is a shop-worn archetype. The archetype he mostly descends from is the Byronic, anti-heroic bad boy that we get from characters like Heathcliff in Wuthering Heights, Mr. Rochester in Jane Eyre, works like that. And of course, that tradition has been transformed, again, through works in anime and later in Western animation that heavily feature this brooding, resentful, also passionate and idealistic bad boy character. The most famous of these is Avatar: The Last Airbender, for reasons I hope I do not have to explain. What matters is how this character archetype is developed and made into an individual. How he interacts with the world he lives in and with these different relationships he has with other people, say with Luz or with Emperor Belos, and that his tempestuous emotions thus feel real and grounded and honest, and they do in the case of Hunter. What I find most fascinating is probably the dynamic between him and Luz. The easy path would have been to make this dynamic romantic or semi-romantic, but they don't do that. Instead, it's this friendly but still a little tense intimacy that exists between them. They see the resemblances between the two of them. Obviously, the show wants the audience to see these resemblances, but they're also clear to the people themselves. They're both lonely, they're both isolated, they both feel like they're at a disadvantage in the society because they do not have the capacity to perform magic unassisted. And because of that, they are extremely insecure about their identities in this world. They're very self-conscious, but they're also extremely nerdy, and in a very specific way. Their nerdiness exists in terms of unlocking the secrets about this world, knowing the history and the natural science of this world that are so closely tied to magic. These allow these nerds to have a deeper understanding of the world that they live in and with the people of that world in a way that they otherwise feel that they couldn't because they do not have the capacity to perform magic. Yet they're hesitant to admit this knowledge because they're afraid it might create an even larger gap between them and the people they're around. The major difference between these two has little to do with who they are themselves, though of course they are different in a lot of ways. No, the major consequential difference between them has a lot more to do with circumstance and fortune or luck or fate or whatever you want to call it. Luz has found a caring and considerate family that wants what's best for her. They do not want to use her to their advantage. They do not want to turn her into a tool for revenge or for using in some ritual sacrifice. They want her to be a part of this family. They make demands of her, and they make her be more responsible than she was back on Earth. But this does not come out of callousness, but out of love and care, and she returns that love and care. Hunter, on the other hand, is constantly anxious and lonely and desperate. He does not have anyone like Ida or Amity. He does care about Belos a lot, and that care seems genuine, even at times when he questions and contradicts Belos. It's worth noting that Hunter compared Amity's desire to prove herself to Luz with his own desire to prove himself to Belos. Not, of course, saying that he has romantic love for Belos. That would be kind of weird, since they're probably related, and because Belos is much older. But what Hunter means is that he feels that he shares with Amity this sense of wanting to impress someone because you genuinely care about them thinking well of you, them viewing you in a good light. Belos, for his part, has demonstrated both care and coldness toward Hunter. Possibly both of them are genuine, and I hope this is the case. I hope Belos does have some level of care for Hunter, even if their relationship is manipulative. But the real question is what Hunter should do in response to Belos. The easy answer is for him to leave Belos. That's probably what the audience is shouting at him, but it's not that easy. Belos has given him everything. Without Belos, he'd be a nobody. He'd just be this unmagical loser lurking around a world powered by magic. He'd become even more resentful and bitter. But with Belos, he finally feels that he has a chance to prove himself, to demonstrate that he is a person who can not just be useful, but can earn the respect of those who are highly ranked in the society. To leave Belos would mean leaving the values that Belos has instilled into him, and that'd be hard. It would mean abandoning the prosperity and promise and potential that Belos has held out to him, which would completely disintegrate Hunter's sense of self. Still, I cannot escape the feeling that Hunter, if he stays with Belos and is unable to break away from his surrogate father, is going to meet an abysmal fate. I have, in a previous video, advanced the theory that Belos is going to try to sacrifice Hunter on the Day of Unity, and though I don't quite know why Belos would do this, why he would need to do this to merge the worlds together, I am increasingly convinced that Belos' intentions are quite sinister, even in regards to Hunter. At this point, we don't even know why Belos wants to merge together the different worlds. He's not Andreas from Amphibia, per se, a restless conqueror who wants the world to kneel to him. His motives seem a lot more personal, especially considering that he came from the human realms. So why does he want to unite the worlds? Out of revenge? Out of longing? We'll have to find out. Likely the answer lies in the tale of the two brothers that we briefly see in the Season 2A finale. One of these brothers is most likely Philip Wittebane, aka Belos himself, most likely. And the other brother, I'd guess, is an ancestor of Hunter. If this is true, this would mean that Belos is actually related by blood to Hunter, which is reasonable to assume at this point. Knowing what we've seen from Philip Wittebane's diary, and knowing how desperate and grasping Belos can be, it would not be altogether surprising if Belos' thirst for knowledge, as Philip Wittebane, turned into a thirst for blood and domination and conquest. The boundary between the so-called positive pursuits and the more nakedly gruesome ones is not as clear as it may initially appear to be. Now, I do not know whether Belos is directly responsible for his brother's death. I'm actually going to say no. I think there's a lot more to Belos than we've seen so far, and I don't think he's just a cackling baddie. But I do think that Belos' actions, or inaction perhaps, led directly to his brother's death, and I think Belos knows that. This still does not answer the question of why he needs Hunter, even if Hunter is a descendant of his brother, in order to merge the worlds together. But perhaps there's some sort of magic that tied Philip and his brother together, so he needs his brother's descendant to reactivate that magic. And possibly this might involve Hunter dying in a ritual sacrifice on the Day of Unity in order to fulfill Belos' ambitions. And what I find depressing and very elegiac is that Hunter might be willing to do it. He might not complain about offering his body to Belos as a sacrifice if it meant that Hunter felt that he was a part of something greater than himself, that he was dedicating himself to a cause of value, that he was being just and moral. Hopefully, Hunter does not find himself led down that dark path, but the more we see of the show, the more I think Hunter is not going to end up well on the Day of Unity. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching The Owl House. I'm sure it'll come back late 2021 maybe, or maybe 2022. Who knows? But whatever happens with The Owl House, I think it'll be really interesting. Most of our characters are on firm footing, even with Luz having made a promise to her mother that she can't keep, and facing all the guilt and doubt that plague her because of that. The exception to this stability is Hunter. He's at a dreadful crossroads in his life, and there are no clear answers as to what he should do. So it'll be fascinating to see how the show progresses in regards to Hunter's character. So anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. That I promise you. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.